Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. I've gotten a lot of questions from viewers recently regarding shaky heads and whether I still throw a shaky head worm since there's been an increase in popularity of other finesse tactics like your Ned rigs, the hover rig. Drop shots are still as popular as ever, and from that standpoint, do I still throw a shaky head worm? And the answer to that is yes, I do. I think there is very much a time and a place for a shaky head as much as any other finesse presentation. In fact, anytime I'm fishing a lot of finesse presentations, I generally will have a Ned rig tied on. I'll have a shaky head tied on. I'll have a wacky rig. I'll have a hover rig, and I'll have a drop shot. So I like to use them all. There are some days where one technique works better than others. Now, I will tell you one time when I really like to choose a shaky head over a Ned rig is when I'm fishing for largemouth specifically. I truly believe that largemouth prefer a little bit longer worm than, say, smallmouth, which prefer that little tiny Ned rig. Spotted bass, I feel like can go either way, but generally speaking, I think they tend to prefer a little longer worm as well. Now, having said that, both presentations work extremely well. I catch plenty of largemouth on a Ned rig. I catch plenty of smallmouth on a shaky head. So from that standpoint, those are just kind of the times and places where I prefer to start with one over another. It just comes down to species. But I will tell you that both of them can work very, very well and that there is a time and a place. Now, a lot of the questions I get is if I am using a shaky head, what are some of the worms that I like to use on it? Now, if you ask me specifically to choose a shaky head, generally speaking, for me, a shaky head is a straight-tailed worm. Yes, you can throw a craw on it. Yes, you can throw a ribbon tail worm on it. You can pretty much put anything on a shaky head hook. But to me, a true shaky head really comes down to the worm in itself being a slender, straight worm profile. So that's what I prefer to use. If I'm going to think about throwing a cross-style worm, generally I'm going to switch completely over to a Ned rig and go with a cross-style bait on a Ned rig. So in this case, these are straight-tailed worms. So I want to share with you these specific baits that I like to use. Now, it's really no specific order, but they are the colors that I like to throw as well. So these are the favorite color in the specific bait. No particular order. We're just going to kick it off with what I would consider to be an old standby. This is probably one of the most preferred shaky head worms out there. This is just a Zoom trick worm. This is the cotton candy color, one of my favorite colors. It can be a difficult color to find, but it really produces very, very well for me around the country. I had a Bass Open tournament a few years ago on Douglas Lake, and it was like, if you were throwing this bait up against some bigger chunk rock, the bass were spawning, you'd catch a pile of largemouth. The problem was the majority of those fish were small spawning males, but I mean, it was unbelievable. If I put a different color shaky head on, I was not getting the bites that I would have gotten throwing the cotton candy color. So this is one that I truly like, and you don't hear a whole lot of people talk about it anymore. And I should specifically add, that's the watermelon cotton candy. Let me just be clear on that. It's the watermelon cotton candy. The next one is one that I've talked about a lot on the channel. This has been discontinued, so you might not be able to find it, but this is the Berkley Powerbait Shaky Snake. I really like the green pumpkin chartreuse tail. It's got a really nice ribbing that allows a lot of very good movement. You can see how limber it is. It's just a very good bait on a shaky head, and you get a lot of side-to-side motion on it. But this is one of my absolute favorites, specifically for spotted bass. I love to have a little bit of chartreuse tail anytime I'm fishing spotted bass, and this bait just gets a pile of bites. I don't know why it's been discontinued, but it is one of my absolute favorites. One of my absolute go-tos anytime I'm fishing the TVA is the Max Scent Magnum Hitworm by Berkley, and this is their plum apple color. This is just a dark purple, a little bit of blue, a little bit of green flake. If you're fishing the TVA, you gotta have one of these tied on. This I'll put on a little heavier one and kind of drag through those same ledge schools that I might be fishing. So I'm generally fishing this a little bit deeper, but I'm going to drag this through the ledges where I was catching fish maybe on some more power fishing baits like a crankbait or a hair jig. And generally speaking, I can catch a couple extras on this. It's also a really good bait to wacky rig if you want something a little bit different. Next up, we're going to go with the Dizzy Diamond by Biz Baits. And this is just their green pumpkin. I've talked about this on the show too. This is one that I really like because of the tail. It stands up. The bait stands up in the water, so it really helps a shaky head in the stand-up position. Seems to get a pile of bites for me. I like the fact that this little bulbous tail gives it a lot of motion in the water as well. Very good for largemouth. It's very good for smallmouth too if you like to throw a shaky head for smallmouth. And then last but not least, I think most people don't throw their favorite stick worm enough. This is the Berkley Max Scent 5-inch General. If you like to throw a Senko, if you like to throw a Yum Dinger, try putting this on a shaky head. It gives the bait, more than anything, a different fall. So if you're getting a lot of bites on the fall, generally speaking, your stick worms will give the bait more of a darting motion, more of a spiraling motion on the fall than traditional skinny or shaky head worms. So you get a little bit different action. But if I'm looking to create strikes either on the fall or if I'm getting a lot of bites when I go to pop the bait, I like to throw a stick worm over other variations of soft plastics. It also is a good way to bulk up a bait. They're generally much larger in size. And then the last thing I want to talk about with regards to shaky heads are my hook choices. Now I generally have two preferred hook styles. These two, this is the well, let's start with, this is the Gamakatsu Alien head. So this is a tungsten head, and then we've got the stand-up spot remover. This is a lead head. I like these two the most. They tend to be my go-to shaky head hooks, but I will tell you I do something with both of these. I take my wire clippers and I cut one spiral off the spot remover, and I cut this bottom hook hanger off the Alien head. So after I do that, I just get one little hook keeper or bait keeper on each side, which works just fine. But more than anything, what happens is when I set the hook, the bait releases better. These hook keeper or bait keepers are so good that they actually tend to hold the bait in place even when fighting a fish. So I don't necessarily like that. I want my bait to pull free. It helps the gap, it helps my hookup, it helps my landing percentage. So that's something I do with both of these, but I really like the head design. From a lead versus tungsten approach, it really just comes down to bottom contour. If I'm fishing rock, I tend to go with the tungsten because it makes more sound. If I'm fishing a softer bottom, so some sand, maybe a little bit of mud, something that I'm not going to be able to make good solid contact with, I go with the lead. It seems to work better for me to get bites if I got a hard bottom and I got tungsten on. But if I don't have that hard bottom, I'm not throwing tungsten. There's no reason to do it. But these are the two heads that I really like to throw. Those are the shaky head baits that I like to throw. And let me know in the comments section, if you guys used these baits before, do you like them? Do you have other shaky head baits that the other viewers can learn from you? So share that in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, new video coming out tomorrow.